The Flash Season 4, Episode 6, When Harry Met Harry. So, first off, I want to say, I really hope that Dibny becomes a main cast member because I swear they have the funniest dialogue with this dude. Like, he is such a hilarious character. I want to see him stay on the show. Like, so I'm hoping with the way they're kind of building it up, he's, Plastic Man and everything, I hope that they just find a way to make it where he can be a regular and he can just be a part of the team, just like Cisco and Caitlin. They both have powers, but they get to be a part of the team because they do like the tech stuff as number one, and then they do like the power stuff is number two. So I hope they find a way to have Dibny as that part of the show, and maybe he can get a job again. Well, he probably can't because of the way he got fired. But I don't know. Whatever they do, I hope that Dibny stays as like a main character because I'm loving him being in these episodes because it's super freaking funny. But I think it's going to end fairly soon because they're just doing the training thing. And at some point it'll be like, okay, now you get to do your thing. And then he'll leave the city or something and we won't see him for a while. So I would love to see him stay on. I don't know if they already talked about that or whatever, but I really hope Dibny stays on because he's super freaking funny. But this episode I thought was really well done. It's, that next step in training. This is like the full-on in the field training that Barry was kind of looking forward to. Starts off, once again, because, Barry and Dibny starts off at the coffee shop, and Dibny's like, oh, I don't know what happened. I can't believe I forgot my wallet. And it's like, yeah, it can happen 5 times in a row. And I love the fact that Barry put the money in the tip jar, and as he walked away, Dibny was like, yoink, and he took the money out of the tip jar and put it in his pocket. And then they're about to get mugged, and they're like, okay, hold on. And they're talking, it's like, okay, muggers, that's superhero 101. You just take them down, no big deal. And he's talking about, Dibny's talking about all these things he can do. It's like, what if I became like a big slingshot? What if I did like a human spring, which that's something that you see a lot with Plastic Man. And it's like, I could do the spring thing and wrap him up and stuff like that. And so he's like, hey, I'm still here. And they're like, Barry's like, all right, well, we need to kind of figure this out, like all this extravagant stuff. We need to figure it out, because he's got a gun. And of course, Dibny's super cocky. He's like, trust me, rookie, like I've dealt with a ton of muggers. This guy's not a shooter. And naturally, the dude shoots him, puts a hole in his suit, and then the bullet bounces back, and he gets shot in the leg. And then when they turn around and they're like, oh, are you okay? He tries to shoot Dibny again, and the bullet stretches his hand and then hits him in the butt. And I love the line where the guy's just screaming, oh, they shot me in my ass. I thought that was hilarious. So, they're arguing and, it's like, I didn't, Barry's like, stop shooting. It's like, I didn't shoot him. He's shooting at me. It's just bouncing back. And Barry was just super mad. It was like, one of these days I'm just going to throw a lightning bolt so far up your ass. So that whole scene I thought was absolutely hilarious. And Barry, he takes the guy to the hospital, which I thought was a terrible idea, by the way. This, I'm sure, will never come up, but there's no reason that in that moment Barry should have used super speed, because I'm like, the dude was looking right at both of them. He's gonna, I know there's a ton of people in the city, all that stuff, but it's like, what was he thinking? Like, I'm gonna take this dude to the hospital, and then he runs at super speed. I'm like, the dude was looking at them this whole time. If he ran across them, he would not forget that. These are the 2 guys I was trying to mug, and then I shot one twice, and the bullets bounced back on me. He'd remember the 2 people in that situation. It's a little hard to forget. So when Barry ran at super speed, I was like, if this were real life, that would have got him busted. But that's never going to come up again. Unless they do some crazy stuff where that actually matters in the future, which would blow my mind if they actually made that scene important, where this guy remembered that, that was Barry Allen or whatever. But I don't think it'll ever come up again. But I was just like, that was a terrible move for him to do, because this guy's going to remember these 2 faces when he tried to shoot a dude and the bullets bounced back and hit him in the leg and in his butt. So I just thought it was really dumb that he would move at super speed like that. And I'm just like, okay, that would get you busted in real life, but this is TV life, so the guy's just never going to show up ever again. But as they go throughout the episode, they're trying to figure out where the rest of the bus met us. Like, what are we going to do to find these people, because we've got no clues. So let's use Dibny and let's hypnotize them and try to unlock some extra memories. So they take him back to the psychiatrist that Barry and Iris are talking to, and of course he's like, oh man, it was one of the best lines, with him looking at her degree and be like, so I see you didn't go to Harvard. And she's like, no, did you? And then he just froze, like, I see what you did there. And it was just like, why would he even say it that? Like, why would he say that to try to like tear her down? And he didn't, like, it just didn't make any sense why he would say that to begin with. And then he's like, I see what you did there. It's like, well, why would you say that to begin with? But super funny. And of course he's like, there's no way I'm going to get hypnotized. And he got hypnotized, mid-sentence. And so they go through the memories of the bus. We see the crying guy. So this kind of goes back to my last review where I was like, why was that his power? He was legitimately crying on the bus. And, like that whole crazy issue. So he sees him on the bus, and then he's counting out the measurements of the ladies. But he sees this one woman who has a bison, on the back of her jacket. And so after that, he wakes up because that's pretty much all the info that he has. But we get to see the villain, and she has a pretty awesome power, and it's to bring inanimate objects to life. So I thought that was actually very cool. And she brings like a cougar statue to life and kills this dude and mauls him and eats him up and everything. So her plan is to go through and get the 3 pieces of this ancient artifact that belongs to the Sioux people. And it's like, okay, this is pretty interesting the way they're kind of handling it, with her going through and trying to get these pieces that have been kind of split up. One was by a collector, and then I think the other 2 pieces were in museums. And so she takes this guy out with this cougar statue in the beginning of the episode, and then as it goes through, we find out that she can only do things that are like either human based or animal based, which I thought was pretty cool. She goes after the guy. She's able to, kind of sweet talk him or whatever, so he invites her to his house. And so she brings the suit of armor to life, which I thought was pretty cool. And that's when Barry and Dibny actually show up, and Dibny has this horrible suit that honestly kind of made him look like a walking, talking sperm. So they go through, and Dibny gets just knocked through a window, and Barry ends up letting the woman go. I believe her villain name was like the Black Bison. And so he ends up letting her go because, of course, he ends up, he wants to save the guy. So he jumps into the suit, which is pretty cool. It made me think of this Avatar moment. But he jumped into the suit and then vibrated and like made it explode, which I also think could have killed the guy because he made a suit of metal explode in front of this dude. And I was like, technically that could have killed him, and probably should have, because there was shards all over the place. I was like, that would have killed him. Really, once again, real life, that guy was dead. That was not the way to handle that situation. But, he blows up the suit, he saves the guy, and Dibny's like, you let her get away. And for Dibny, we have this process throughout the episode where he's realizing, in order to be a hero, you have to help the people. Like, as much as it's important to get the villain, in the moment, you have to get the people. And that's just what it is. So, it was actually really fun watching him go through the episode and him learning these lessons, because in the beginning, it's like, who cares? Like, we just go for the goal. Like, when I was a cop, it didn't matter, the in-between. It was the end goal is this bad guy and have them in prison. And that's what needs to happen. Like, that's what we do. We're superheroes. And Barry's trying to tell him, no, we get the bad guy, but we have to save the people. Like, what's the point in getting the bad guy if all the people are dead? So, it was really cool the way that went on. And then, of course, they have the moment where she brings the caveman statue to life inside of the armored truck. So they, of course, end up getting there. And Dibny is trying to capture her. And ultimately, he does. Like, he's able to... Well, actually, they don't even capture her because she still ended up escaping. Like, she passed out for like half a second, I guess, but she still ended up escaping. So he was holding onto the car, and then he lets it go, and she crashes. But in that time frame, because Barry was wounded with his leg, this light pole drops down on this little girl, and it knocks her unconscious. And I think it like sprained her ankle and gave her like a bit of a concussion. But ultimately, she was fine. But that was a huge mistake because if Dibny, just let the car go, he could have saved that girl from any sort of injuries. So I thought that was a cool moment. And, he has to deal with that lesson. Like when they go to the hospital and he realizes how bad he screwed up, I thought that was a good moment. And then they have that conversation when Barry goes to him at his office. And it's like, for like 5 years, all I had to do was deal with the end game. I just dealt with the crappy stuff. It's gone. Like that bad situation, I don't see what comes after. I don't see all the depression and all the sadness and hatred. It's just, that's it. It's just the mission, and that's all there is to it. And now I have to worry about people being hurt, the entire city being hurt. So that was a really great moment. And then, of course, we see him go to the little girl at the end of the episode, which I guess it depends on if you watch it on TV or not, but I had to watch it online, which is a part of why this review is so late, because I'm not at my house, so I didn't get to watch like any of the recordings. I'm watching everything online this week, which really sucks. But they kept showing this commercial. It was like the stretched scene. It was like an extended scene where Dibny would go to Caitlin, and it's like, hey, I need your help, and I'm going to see this girl, and I don't know if I should give her like a bouquet of flowers or something. He was talking about like using his powers, and it's like, I don't know if I should do like a bouquet of flowers or just do like a lesser thing. And so she's like, well, why not just spend the money, if it's a date or whatever. He's like, it's not a date. And so she draws like this, basically like a balloon bear. And it's like, he's like, that's great, but I don't know if I can do that. And she's like, well, either figure that out or open up the piggy bank, because she thought it was, a legitimate date. But then it actually tied into the end of the episode when he goes to see the little girl, and he does end up forming the little inflatable dog. Looks super creepy to me personally. I was just like, yeah, something about that just looks gross and creepy because it was like it was flesh. It was flesh looking like a balloon little walking dog. So it was like, okay, that was kind of gross to me, oddly enough. But you know, it made the little girl happy, and she's like, you know, to do a giraffe and stuff. So he starts to stretch, and then of course they cut from that. But I thought his journey through this episode was definitely great. Like, you know, we get to see him realize what it means for him to be a hero, and even in the end, after they you know, they deal with the final battle when they're at the museum. He saves the security guard, and Barry does actually a pretty great job where he grabs the bowl and he just throws it, and then he just goes in goes at super speed because she freaked out. I was like, oh crap! And she's like, and gotcha. And I was like, that was actually really genius. And he even said like, I kind of can't believe you even fell for that. And it was just like, boom, we're done here, and let's go. And I was like, that was actually a cool way to solve that problem. So, you know, even with everything that happened for Dibny throughout the episode, he really learned what it meant to be a hero. And after everything they'd done, he took the 3 pieces of the necklace and he actually sent it to the Sioux people. So I thought that was actually kind of awesome of him to do that at the end. And it was like, you know, it's just a different way to be a hero. So I was like, that was actually really cool. It was, you know, something that Barry didn't really teach him. It was just like that extra little thing that he'd done because he kind of gets it. You know, people just being treated bad, or, you know, sometimes you do different things to be the good guy. And that wasn't one of those like super crazy vigilante ways of doing it. It was just, this belongs to these people, so I'm just gonna send it there. And it was really simple. So I really loved that. Main story was definitely great. Side story was pretty good too. Definitely enjoyed the side story with the Council of Wells. Amazing reference to not only Lord of the Rings but also Harry Potter with the wizard version of Harry. I love that because like him showing up was hilarious in the beginning, and then they have Cisco trying to talk him up about like the different versions of him, and it's like, you know, you're this and you're that, and it's like, and sometimes you're a wizard, Harry. So I love that reference. That was a great line to put in there. But it was pretty funny, like watching him talk to the other versions of himself. It was cool. Like we get to see 3 wildly different versions. We get to see like the German version of him. We get to see like this sort of playboy version, and then we get to see the post-apocalyptic half robot version of him as well. So it was definitely funny watching them argue and stuff like that. But ultimately, they're able to kind of work through their issues, and they're able to figure out where DeVoe lives. So of course that ultimately ends up tying into, you know, the actual overarching story of them finding DeVoe. And DeVoe had a great moment early on in the episode when he's talking to who may or may not be his real wife. I don't know. I doubt that that's his wife. We'll just go with his partner. When she's like, we need to talk, and then he says the end of the sentence, or the end of the entire conversation, and she was like, what? And he's like, fine, we'll take the long way. And then he ends that way. I was like, that was actually super cool. Like, it was very simple, and I knew exactly what was going to happen, but it was still cool watching that scene where the first thing he said was the very end of their conversation. And then she's like, well, you know, going through all the possibilities, like, I've seen it all, and I know how it ends. And she's like, well, how does it end? And, you know, he says the exact same line, and then it kind of shut her up. She was like, oh, okay, well, I guess you figured out some math stuff. So I kind of love that. But they find out where he lives, and they go to the house at the end. She pretends to be his wife. He comes in the wheelchair. We actually get to see the actor without all the makeup. He looks insanely different. I was like, is that the same person? Because his voice is different and stuff like that. Because I didn't know if that was his actual voice or if they augmented it. They basically just made it like a little bit deeper. But it was so weird. I was like, that is insane, because you wouldn't even think he had hair with the way they did the makeup. Like, you would just think he was kind of bald and they just put this stuff on him. But man, that was so crazy seeing him, because he had a ton of hair too. It wasn't like he had like short hair or anything. His hair was like fairly long, and I was like, yeah, it doesn't, you know, they did a great job with, you know, the ball cap and all that stuff. I was like, man, he looks totally different. It could just be the fact that the room is blue, but he also looked like he had like much paler skin when he's like in the whole suit and everything. So I love that. I was like, holy crap, he looks insanely different. It was actually kind of cool seeing the actual actor, and it was just like, wow, this is not the same person. It was so weird seeing that. But they get to him at the end, and he comes in the wheelchair, and they're kind of freaked out. They're just like, they don't know what to do. So I'm definitely looking forward to the next episode. I assume that it is actually going to be this week, because this week is Thanksgiving. So I was surprised that any of the shows were coming on. I know Supergirl's coming on this week. I don't know, you know, maybe Monday, Tuesday we'll still have our new episodes, and then, you know, Wednesday will be reruns, and obviously Thursday with it being Thanksgiving and Friday. But I was kind of surprised that anything was coming on at all this week. But I know Supergirl is. I would assume if they're doing Monday, they would at least do Tuesday, because I think the only thing that even comes on Monday is Supergirl. I don't even know what other shows come on outside of the superhero stuff and Supernatural. Like, that's all I watch on CW is it's either comic based or it's supernatural at this point, because the Vampire Diaries went off. So that was like Supernatural and Vampire Diaries were the only two non-comic based shows I ever really watched on the CW. So I don't know if we're actually getting an episode next Tuesday, but I'm certainly looking forward to how things are going to play out, because they're dealing with a mastermind, like a criminal mastermind, and even though they know where he lives, they don't know, they have no idea what they're dealing with. We still don't know really what they're dealing with, because we don't know what this dude's plan is. So, you know, I'm excited for how that's supposed to play out. I'm sure that's basically going to be the start of the next episode, is them at the house, but I'm really looking forward to how that's supposed to play out. Like, that's as close as they've gotten. They have, I think it was like a 92% match or whatever, and it's accurate. It was definitely correct. So they know where he lives. They know who their villain is. They just need to figure out how to do it, because, you know, it's kind of seeing is believing, and right now they're just seeing this woman who has a husband in a wheelchair. So I'm looking forward to how that's going to play out, how they're going to find out what's really happening in front of them, or if they just won't, because I'm sure that's how it'll play out in the next episode. They'll be like, oh, it can't be him, and they'll try to backtrack and deny that it could possibly be this random dude in a wheelchair, because he just seems like a guy in a wheelchair. So I feel like that might be how they play it, but I'm looking forward to how that's going to work, because I don't know, it might be a part of his plan. It's like, it's so hard to tell. Like, he talked about the statistics and seeing all the different variables. Nothing seemed to really surprise him. So at this point, I think everything's kind of going according to one of who knows how many plans he already has set up in his head. But looking forward to either this week's episode or just the next episode in general. But of course, we'd love to know what you guys thought about this one. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And I want to know how you guys felt about Dibny's journey throughout this episode. I think they've done a great job in general of building up his character as, you know, like a new part of the team, as just, you know, a hero. But I think this was definitely like that heartfelt episode with him, because before it was like, yeah, he's a part of the team, or, you know, they're training him and using his powers, but this was the one where he was in the field and learning you have to save the people over catching the bad guy, because, you know, the people are what's most important, saving the people. So I really enjoyed it, and I think that's just going to go further with his character. He'll still be, I'm sure, the douchey character, you know, in his ways, but as far as, you know, his hero persona, his hero side, I think it'll be he'll be a lot better at it. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know if they're gonna do the actual Plastic Man costume, because they referenced him being naked. I think I mentioned that before. Technically, that's what he is. He's technically naked. At least I heard that in like one of the cartoons. That technically, him being in like his red outfit and stuff is not actually an outfit. That's just him changing the color of his own actual skin, and technically it's all just his body and he's nude. So I don't know if they'll actually give him the costume. I'm sure they will, just because that's an easier way to do it. But I would love to see that. I don't know if we'll get the classic Plastic Man costume with the red and the gold band and everything, but I would love to see that. It, oddly enough, I think would work perfectly, but that's just me. I would love to see the classic costume, or, you know, some cool variation of it. I think would be great. But we'd love to know what you guys thought about his journey throughout this episode, and of course, just want to know what you guys thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.